Eric Clapton was born on March 30, 1945, in Ripley, Surrey, England. He grew up in a really confusing family situation. He actually thought his grandparents were his mom and dad, and that his real mom was his sister. When he found out the truth, it really messed with his head, and later showed up in how he expressed his feelings through music. When he was young, he fell in love with the guitar, and spent tons of time listening to blues musicians like Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters, and B.B. King. These early music heroes shaped not just how he played, but who he became as an artist, someone who mixed American blues with British rock. Clapton first became famous in the early 1960s when he joined a band called the Yardbirds, which was huge in the British blues scene. Even though the Yardbirds were doing really well, Clapton quit in 1965 because he felt they were selling out and moving away from real blues music to make more money. He cared more about staying true to the music than being rich and famous, and that became something he was known for. After leaving the Yardbirds, Clapton joined John Mayall and the Blues, where people started calling him Slowhand, and he built a reputation as an amazingly talented blues guitarist with serious skill and passion. In 1966, Clapton started the famous band Cream with Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker. With Cream, Clapton took rock music to new places, mixing improvisation, heavy blues, and trippy sounds into something totally new and exciting. Songs like Sunshine of Your Love and White Room showed off his incredible guitar solos and how confident he was becoming as a performer. Even though Cream only lasted 2 years because the band members couldn't get along and had creative fights, those 2 years made Clapton a worldwide rock star and a pioneer of the Guitar Hero era. After Cream broke up, Clapton formed another supergroup called Blind Faith with Steve Winwood, Ginger Baker, and Rick Gregg. Blind Faith only made one album, but it had classic songs like Can't Find My Way Home. This short project showed that Clapton was always searching for new sounds and deeper ways to express himself. He also worked with artists like Delaney and Bonnie, and later Derek and the Dominoes, whose 1970 album Layla and other assorted love songs became one of the greatest rock albums ever. The title song Layla was written because Clapton was in love with Pattie Boyd, who was married to his friend George Harrison. It's still one of the most famous love songs ever, with its powerful guitar riffs and raw emotion, even though his career was taking off. Clapton's personal life was a total mess because of drug and alcohol problems. During the 1970s, he got hooked on heroin and later struggled with alcoholism. These addictions almost destroyed his life and career completely, but with hard work and help from friends, Clapton eventually beat these problems. And getting clean became something that inspired other people dealing with the same issues. Being honest about his struggles made him more relatable, reminding fans that even though people called him Guitar God, he was just a regular person, fighting his own battles. Clapton's career in the 1980s and after was about reinventing himself but also dealing with horrible tragedy. He went through devastating loss when his 4-year-old son, Connor, died in 1991. Out of that terrible heartbreak, he wrote Tears in Heaven, one of his most emotional and loved songs that touched millions of people with its gentle melody and heartbreaking words. This song wasn't just about remembering his son, it connected with countless people who had lost someone they loved, making Clapton's legacy about being not just a master guitarist but also someone who told deeply human stories through music. Over the years, Clapton has worked with tons of legendary musicians, including George Harrison, Bob Dylan, J.J. Cale, and B.B. King. He could play anything: blues, rock, pop, and even reggae, like his famous cover of Bob Marley's I Shot the Sheriff. This wide range of music kept his work fresh and exciting for different generations. While his love for blues kept everything, he played feeling real and authentic in a way few musicians could match. Eric Clapton's personal life has always been completely mixed up with his music and the people closest to him. One of the most important friendships and love stories of his life started in the late 1960s when he became close friends with George Harrison from the Beatles. Their friendship wasn't just casual, it came from really respecting and admiring each other's talent. Clapton was invited into Harrison's world, playing guitar on Beatles songs like While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and they spent tons of time together sharing ideas, trying new sounds, and working together in ways that made both of them better artists. But underneath all the friendship and creative connection, Clapton was dealing with something really personal and difficult. He had fallen in love with Harrison's wife, Pattie Boyd, the English model and muse who had already inspired Harrison's famous love song, Something. Clapton's feelings for Boyd became both passionate and painful, and his unrequited love for her made him write some of his most famous music, including the emotional song Layla, which revealed his pain and longing for her. Things eventually changed years later when Harrison and Boyd's marriage fell apart, and they got divorced in 1977. After Boyd was free from her marriage to Harrison, she and Clapton finally made their long and complicated relationship official. On March 27, 1979, in Tucson, Arizona, They got married in what seemed to many people like the end of a years-long love triangle that had fascinated fans and the media. For Clapton, who had fought through drug problems and the pain of wanting Boyd for so long, the marriage felt like both a personal win and a fresh start. But married life wasn't easy. Clapton and Boyd really wanted to have kids together, but they faced heartbreaking problems. Despite wanting children badly, they had multiple miscarriages and even tried medical help. In 1984, they tried in vitro fertilization, which back then was still pretty new and emotionally tough. Sadly, these attempts also failed, leaving both Clapton and Boyd devastated, and putting huge stress on their marriage because they couldn't have the children they dreamed about. During this rough time, Clapton made choices that would have major consequences. He started an affair with Italian model and actress Lori Del Santo. From this relationship, a son was born. Connor Clapton was born on August 21, 1986, and became a source of happiness in Clapton's messy personal life. But Connor's birth also destroyed his marriage. When Boyd found out about Clapton's cheating and that he had a child with Del Santo, she was crushed. The betrayal was too much to get past, and their marriage fell apart. By 1989, Boyd and Clapton divorced, ending a marriage that had once been celebrated as the conclusion of one of rock music's most famous love stories. The tragedy in life got even worse with the shocking and terrible death of his young son Connor. On March 20, 1991, when he was just 4 years old, Connor fell from an open bedroom window on the 53rd floor of a Manhattan apartment building. It was a devastating accident that left Clapton broken with grief beyond words. This loss became a life-changing moment for him, affecting his music and his outlook on life forever. Out of this huge pain, Clapton poured his grief into one of his most emotional songs, Tears in Heaven, a heartfelt ballad that expressed both the sadness of a grieving father and the hope of seeing his son again in the afterlife. The song connected with millions of people, becoming one of his most lasting works and a universal song about loss and healing. Years later, after going through so much heartbreak, Clapton found love again. In 1998, when he was 53 years old, he met Malia McNary, a 22-year-old administrative assistant at a party in Columbus, Ohio, after one of his concerts. Their connection started quietly and low-key, with the couple dating privately for a year before making their relationship public in 1999. Unlike his earlier, famous relationships that were often full of drama and public attention, this partnership brought Clapton stability and peace. On January 1, 2002, they got married in a small ceremony at St. Mary Magdalene Church in Ripley, the same village where Clapton was born, connecting his new life chapter to his roots. Together, they built the family Clapton had always wanted, raising 3 daughters who brought him joy and stability after years filled with chaos, loss, and change. At 80 years old, Eric Clapton has lived a life that most musicians could never imagine, filled with amazing achievements, painful struggles, and legendary friendships. One of the most interesting and lasting connections in his story is the bond he shared with George Harrison of the Beatles. For decades, fans and people who write about celebrities have wondered about their friendship, their rivalry, and the complicated love triangle with Harrison's wife Pattie Boyd. Now in his later years, Clapton has finally spoken openly, thinking back on how deep that relationship was and revealing truths he kept private for most of his career. Clapton described Harrison not just as someone he played music with sometimes, but as a kindred spirit. George was more than just a friend, Clapton said. He was like a brother to me, but at the same time, there was always this unspoken competition between us. Both men were incredibly talented guitarists, though with very different styles. Clapton was fiery, passionate, and blues-driven, while Harrison was melodic, subtle, and spiritually influenced. Despite those differences, their respect for each other was obvious. Clapton remembered late-night jam sessions at Harrison's house where